As you listen to me, just take a moment to close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, you can begin the process of drifting comfortably asleep. And while you begin the process of drifting comfortably asleep, you can hear me talking in the background. And as I talk in the background, so your awareness can drift and you can begin to dream. And you can have a sense of being in a submarine. It's a small little submarine. It's almost like a giant glass ball under the water. And you're in this submarine and you can see all around you, and you've got some controls in front of you. And as you move left, right, up and down, so you can hear the sub's motors whirring as you turn, as you move. You can hear the occasional bubble of air rising from the sub as you descend. You can hear the regular ping of the sonar. And you can see outside the sub, you can see the sea. And you can only see a short way in front of you, where the spotlights on the sub are powerfully beaming out into the darkness, illuminating bits of matter that are just floating in the water. You can see different fish swim by and other sea creatures. You can see some larger creatures swimming by. Perhaps you can notice the slow-moving shark as it seems to serenely glide past the sub in the distance, moving its tail left and right, effortlessly powering itself through the water so gently. And as you gaze around, this underwater world can almost seem hypnotic. Where everything appears to be slowed down. Time appears to be slowed down. There's a certain feeling to the silence. There's a certain inkiness to the dark water. And yet there's a certain peacefulness to it all. And you look down at your dials and you start taking the submarine deeper and deeper into the ocean. And while the submarine slowly descends, so you can be curious about what the weather is like on the surface. You can be aware that when the sub was at the surface, the water was rougher. The sub bobbed and bounced around on the waves. Just like a ball bouncing around on the surface of the water, just floating there. And yet, as that sub descended, so the water became more still, calmer. The water started quite bright and clear, and gradually became darker and darker and bluer the deeper you travelled in the sub. And now down here, descending, with just the sound of the motor, that high-pitched kind of motor sound of the sub as it descends deeper and deeper. And just being able to look out from the sub, look all around you, almost all the way around you. Hearing the occasional whale sound of distant whales calling out and communicating with each other, as that sound reaches the sub and reverberates through the sub. And you continue to descend deeper and deeper, and you reach a point where you start to notice what looks like a cliff edge rising up to meet you as you descend. And as that cliff edge rises up to meet you, your plan is to lower the sub down along the side of that cliff, down deep into that trench, and even deeper under the water. And you gaze up towards the surface, and there's just blackness. You've reached so far down, light doesn't reach this far. So looking up and you can't see the daylight of that warm sun that's beating down at the surface. And as you get closer and closer to that cliff edge, so you notice something interesting. You see what appears to be a park bench on the edge of the cliff. And you're aware there was a time long ago when this cliff edge used to overlook the ocean. And you imagine what that must have been like before the sea levels rose to their current height. You imagine what it must have been like. And as the sub continues to descend, your mind can drift and wander and imagine what it must have been like to be sat on that bench, perhaps alone, just gazing out, enjoying the view, looking out over the sea, or maybe with a loved one or with a good friend, and sharing the experience. And you imagine what that must have been like for them to gaze out to see the sun rise, to see the way the light shimmers and dances on the surface of the sea as the sun makes its journey across the sky, to be gazing down from that bench, watching the way the clouds move on the ocean's surface, the way the movement of the water creates shimmering and sparkling and twinkling light that changes as that sun continues to move. The way the sky goes from darkness with stars and the moon in the sky to gradually having some reds and orange in the sky before the sun appears on the horizon. And as the sun appears on the horizon, so blues start to appear in the sky. The sky goes from a black to blue, with different shades of reds and orange and yellow. And those shades of red and orange and yellow disappear as the sun continues to rise. And as the sun continues to rise, so the sky becomes more blue. And the water reflects that light. And so the water changes colour as that sun rises. And the shadows start out long and stretched, pointing one direction. They become shorter and shorter as the sun continues to rise. Until they seem to disappear at midday. And then start to get longer and longer in a different direction as the sun continues to travel across the sky, making its journey towards setting as the blue sky suddenly begins to change and darken, and reds and oranges and yellows begin to appear more. And the water perhaps shimmers a little pink and changes as that sun passes over towards setting. And you imagine what it's like. That person sat on that bench, perhaps coming here daily, seeing what it's like at different times of the year, drifting and floating in their own mind, enjoying the journey of that sun across the sky, perhaps lost in thought, and feeling the warmth of the sun as it rises, as the warmth increases, and recognizing that that warmth begins to decrease as the sun passes overhead towards setting. And how that person on the bench is able to notice changes to the sounds and to the quality of the sounds as the sun rises, passes overhead. And moves towards setting with different bird sounds, different animal sounds. And as the temperature changes, so sound also changes. And as the sun begins to set, so this person on the bench notices more prominently the lighthouse that's set back a little way from the bench on this cliff. Notices how that light, that powerful beam of light, pierces the darkness so silently, and yet with such life. Spinning round and scanning the sea. And knowing that that lighthouse is alerting ships out there, that there's land here, and the tip of that mountain is now an island. But it was once a cliff with a mountain behind it, with very few inhabitants. And so there was very little light, and it was a hazard to people on the sea. It was a hazard to ships. And the night air can be cooler on the face of the person on the bench as they gaze up and watch twinkling stars and see the moon as it's risen in the sky. And the sub continues to descend, down the side of the cliff into this trench. And near the bottom where the beach used to be, and you steer the sub along what used to be the shallow water along this beach. Before you come to another drop off, another point where it's like a cliff edge. Only this time it descends a long way. And in this sub you continue the descent, enjoying the calmness, enjoying the peace, the tranquility, the silence of the sub, with just the sounds underwater, sonar beeping, the motor whirring, relaxing deeper and deeper down the side of the cliff. And you're after something that you were told was here, but you're unsure whether it is because you've never seen it. But there are old legends. There are old legends that there's a cave right down on the ocean floor at the deepest point in this trench. And it's a huge cave. And so you want to go and see if you can discover that for yourself. And everything outside of the beams of light from the sub is pitch black, inky black. You see occasional jellyfish and squid dart into view. Explore the sub with curiosity. You see other fish. Explore the sub with curiosity. But everything outside the sub appears to get slower and slower, as if the pace of life slows right down here. And as you continue down in the sub, so you reach the bottom of the ocean at this point. And as you reach the bottom, the lights light up the bottom and you see it's like pure white. And the motors churn it up, and as you're just a small amount above the bottom of the ocean, that pure white churns up and fills what you can see out the window. And you swim out of that cloud of pure white in the sub. Moving that sub through that cloud. And the motors are making a cloud behind you. But you keep moving forward as you move along the edge of the cliff, looking for that cave. and the lights of the sub light up the side of the cliff. And then after a little while of searching, so it's like the lights have disappeared into blackness, like there's nothing to reflect the lights anymore. And you know this is the cave. And so you steer the sub into the cave. You notice the sounds of your motors have changed sound slightly due to the acoustics in the cave underwater here. There's something slightly different about the sound. And initially, as you drive the sub into the cave, the lights from the sub appear to not reach anything. It's just blackness in every direction. Wherever you look out the window, everything is just black. And you drive that sub deeper and deeper into the cave. And you follow your sonar map. And then you find at the back of the cave a tunnel that's narrower and yet still plenty wide enough for your sub. And you follow that tunnel, and you know that once this was all volcanic, and that you're now inside the mountain of this island. And where you are once lava flowed, and you follow this tunnel. And you have to focus as you pilot the sub safely through the tunnel. And you reach a wall in the tunnel. And you're surprised by how smooth the wall seems. And so you follow that up. You start rising up within the tunnel. And you notice that this tube, this tunnel, is going diagonally. And so you continue following it and you steer it in your sub. And it takes your focus to safely do this. And after some time of weaving through tunnels, you start seeing some light. And the submarine breaks the surface and is bobbing around on the surface of water. And you go out of the exit of the submarine onto a ladder bit that's on the outside of the submarine. And climb across onto a ledge. And you realize that you're in the top of this mountain, that somehow the water has filled the mountain higher than the land around it. And this old and empty volcano is now full of seawater. And you don't know how this is possible, that the water levels can be so high within the mountain. But you start exploring, and you find some old writing on the walls. You find evidence that this has probably been an empty volcano for many thousands of years, and that people have somehow found their way in here. Perhaps they used it for shelter or some other purpose. And as you explore the writing and the symbols, so you begin to learn and discover something about yourself, about humanity, about hope and possibility, about the wonders of the universe. Something these people knew that's been lost along the way, about what's important. And then as you explore a dark tunnel that's just off of the ledge, so you see a light at the end of the tunnel, and so you head towards that light. And it looks like a crystal or a giant diamond resting on a plinth. And something within you makes you feel compelled to place both your hands on that diamond or on that crystal. And as you do, so suddenly you feel energized, you feel a flood of energy flowing through your body, flowing through your mind, almost like it's giving you insights, learning, deep time knowledge, wisdom, understanding. An understanding of the ancients and of their ways and their learning and knowledge. and how they came by that knowledge. And you kind of go into an altered state where suddenly it's like you're not in that tunnel anymore. Instead, you're stood in a vast, empty space, almost like a space of nothingness. You have no sense of up or down except that you're walking on something. You have no sense of left and right, or backwards and forwards. Every direction seems the same as every other direction. And yet you seem to be able to walk like normal, but you could just as easily decide to walk facing a different direction, even facing down or facing up, and you can walk like normal, as if there's a land beneath your feet. And so there's no concept of up nor down, nor left nor right, nor backward nor forward. Just you in this space. Accessing some kind of universal knowledge, wisdom, wonder and curiosity. And you see something off in the distance. And so you walk towards it because there's nothing else around. And then you decide, why not walk elsewhere? And you're walking towards it and you look around you. And in every direction you see nothing but black. And yet it's not dark. And the only thing is whatever it is you can see in front of you. And so you walk in a different direction, and within a few paces, the only thing you can see around you is that thing that's in front of you. And you know you've changed directions. And so you look around you to where you came from, and you can't see that thing. And so you change directions again. And within a few paces, you start to see something in front of you. And so you look around you and you can't see that thing that you've just walked away from the direction of. It's as if somehow it doesn't matter what direction you walk. It is inevitable. You're going to walk towards that thing. And so there's a certain comfort to this. And you have a certain level of acceptance, and so you just carry on walking. And the closer that you get, the more you notice that it's like a pile of clay, just resting there on the ground in front of you. And yet you can't see the ground. Everything around you is just black. You just have a sense of a ground. And you feel compelled to take hold of that clay. And you start unconsciously just moulding that clay, almost absent-mindedly, like doodling or twiddling with something, just absent-mindedly moulding that clay and sculpting that clay. And you don't know what your hands are doing. They're just moulding and sculpting that clay instinctively. They don't know why, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know the purpose, they don't know the meaning this will have deep within you. They don't know the connection that clay has to the you moulding the clay. and just taking time to be moulding that clay, moulding a sculpture out of that clay. Whatever is appearing is self-expression through the fingertips, through that clay, and there's a certain coolness to the clay and a feeling of the way the clay gives when you squish it and touch it, the way the clay goes through the fingers, the sound of the clay as bits of clay pushed against other bits of clay. Taking time to mould something out of that clay, almost like being in a daydream while moulding and modelling that clay. And then after a while, there's almost like an enlightenment, a sudden realization that what has been being moulded is finished, is complete. But I don't know whether that you looks at that and recognizes what it is, or doesn't recognize what it is, but somehow intuitively understands, or doesn't even look at it, knowing that the discovery happens on the inside, and something about the completion of this leads you to just stand up, turn around, and walk in the other direction, knowing that that's left exactly where it needs to be, modelled exactly how it needs to be modelled, to have some kind of influence positively within you, without knowing what that influence is going to be until it's discovered in everyday life. And you start to walk back through the void. You don't know where you're walking because you can't see an exit. All you know is that that clay is no longer in front of you. And after some time of walking, so light begins to appear. And as the light begins to appear, with a deep breath, the eyes open, looking at that diamond that the hands are on. And there's a certain energized feeling. And there's light given off by that diamond while it's being touched. And then as the hands are removed from it, so the light fades, and you start your journey back through that tunnel, back to that ledge. And you know somewhere deep inside you, something has shifted, something has been learned, something wonderful has happened. And then you get back into the submarine. And you close the door to the sub. And with the sound of bubbles, you watch as the water level around the sub rises as you descend, popping under the water, going back down into the tunnels within this mountain, down deeper and deeper, with a certain sense of curiosity about the future, going down deeper and deeper, following those tunnels all the way back to the ocean. and then at the ocean. Starting to rise that submarine up, slowly, gently, with tremendous patience, enjoying the silence of the ocean. Slowly and gently, rising up firstly to the top of that first trench, then moving along to that cliff, rising up the cliff, and seeing the ruins of the lighthouse, seeing that bench on the cliff, and continuing to rise up as you drift deeper and deeper asleep, continuing to rise up in that submarine. And as that submarine gets closer to the surface, so there appears to be more life, more fish. Movement in the sea appears to be faster than deep down under the water. And at the surface, you exit the sub and you get back onto your boat with the other crew, and you've had a long journey. And so you know you're going to tell the crew what you've learned, what you've discovered. But you need to process that for yourself first. And so you take some time to go to bed, because all you want is a lie down after such a long journey and with so much to process in your mind. You lie down, you take a few comfortable deep breaths, and you drift comfortably asleep. And while you drift comfortably asleep, so you begin to find yourself in that void. And in that void, you find peace. You find harmony and balance. You find comfort and wisdom. You find a certain sense of curiosity and insight. And as you drift and dream, so you have a sense of a comfortable healing light, helping to guide you deeper into the drifting and dreaming, passing through your head, passing through your neck, your shoulders, and your arms, passing through your body, your upper back, into your lower back, your chest, down into your stomach, passing down to your fingertips, and down towards your legs as you drift and dream deeper and deeper asleep, so comfortably and relaxed, connecting with this void, with something about this space that helps you learn and develop while you sleep, helps you find peace, calmness, tranquility, inner focus and wonder and wisdom as you process those words on the cave wall, those symbols on that ledge, as you process that clay object and the self-expression that went into modelling that object. As you sleep and dream on that boat, with the swaying, rocking of the boat on the waves, helping to lull you comfortably asleep, connecting you with that deep inner wisdom. As you drift asleep now.